I can't believe it's term 2 already. Rah! Kia ora e te whānau. Nau mai hoki mai anō. Ko te ranatia reria tōku ingoa. Ko te tōku ingoa poto. Kei a koe, you can call me whatever you'd like. This is check-in number 11. 11 people. Time is moving fast. I've still not figured out how I'm going to change this setup, but I'm figuring it out, so you just stay tuned. However, yeah, let's jump into this first week back of term 2. Now, I'm not going to lie. I was hella unprepared for coming back to school. Mainly because, like, why can't holidays be longer? I mean, no shade. I love school. You know that. You know I love school. I love being at kura. However, in terms of being in those environments, my brain was absent. Like, come Rahina, Monday, I was like, what is that? What are you saying? We had to stand up at one point and talk about what we did in the holidays, and like any kind of semblance of te reo Māori just gone out the door. So that was a really good start. However, following on rā tū, rā apa, rā pare, rā mere, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I finally felt like things that I hadn't really had cement for me last term finally got in there, and it was very, very good. Tino pai. Yes. Now, I want to try and preface this by saying this entire term is dedicated to learning about the marae, which is really important, right? And when I first came back, I was like, oof, like a whole term on the marae, that's a long time to talk about one topic. However, the more that we got into it, the more I was like, oh no, see, that's why. There's a lot that goes on in that space that we do really need to unpack. And of course, it's different for different iwi, so that requires more time, more learning. And one of the key takeaways for me during this week was the fact that, I'm not sure if you remember me mentioning in previous videos how like in Te Ao Māori everything has its like equal and opposite. So there's always like a pairing, and that's no different on the marae. However, when we talk about the wharenui, something really, really interesting happens in that space. I mean, for those of you that don't know, the marae is obviously a very, very significant place for Māori. And, you know, back in the olden days, the marae was pretty much a hub for us and all of our knowledge, all of our understanding, all of our art. You know, we based a lot of the way that we lived on how the marae works. And there's something that is really interesting that happens in terms of the wharenui. Now, for those of you who don't know, the wharenui is kind of like the meeting house, or like it literally translates to the big house. And that's where a lot of like hui, so meetings and all kinds of events happen there. But again, back in the olden days and today, the wharenui is what holds all of that knowledge still. And obviously all of that knowledge is different for different iwi. And the way that it works in terms of, you know, us being able to take that knowledge and use it to our advantage, or use it in the kai whai kōrero, kai karanga. So kai karanga, the woman that calls people on, and the kai whai kōrero is the male that speaks on the pai pai. How that all works is that knowledge kind of comes down and cycles through all of the areas in the wharenui and comes right back around and informs itself again. And so it comes right down into the kai karanga, kai whai kōrero, to which they speak and call and sing. And then that information then gets recycled back into the marae. And I think that's a really perfect example of the way that, you know, we believe things work in Te Ao Māori. Not only are we grateful to have this information come to us and be left for us from our ancestors, but we continue that cycle in that we inform it with our new knowledge, our new information, and it just continues on and on and on. And so you hear that, right? And it's beautiful. But then you think back to how, in terms of the past with colonization, the marae has always been a target point to try and get rid of us and get rid of our history and our knowledge. It truly kind of like, it baffles you as to just how deeply monstrous those processes have been for us, and how deeply sad it is that a lot of those marae, those iwi, those places of knowledge have been either destroyed or taken away from us. I don't know, just a bit of a thought of mine that I had during this week, but nonetheless I wanted to share it with you because I think it's still really, really important, right? But yes, I digress. The big takeaways were pretty much just honing in on the wharenui and what each bit of the wharenui, both inside and outside, mean. And again, this took a whole week, so I'm gonna struggle trying to condense it into one, but I'll give you one example that I thought was it's good to translate on camera, if that makes sense. Now, on most marae, not all, but on most marae, most of the time, you'll have a statue right at the top of the wharenui, and that can either be a tiko tiko or a kōrero. Now, sometimes the marae can have each, a tiko tiko and a kōrero, but just for simplicity's sake, I will break down each. So a tiko tiko is usually like a full body statue, can either be an animal or a person, or an animal on a person on an animal, sorry. And pretty much what they are supposed to represent is the rangatira of that iwi. So a very, very highly regarded person, leader of that iwi. And usually there's a big story that goes behind the significance of that tiko tiko. And the same goes for the kōrero. However, the kōrero is usually just the face, and that can be either the face of a tupuna or, again, a rangatira. But most of the time it's just a tupuna. But again, so you picture that there, right? Then you've got that centre post running right down the middle that kind of supports the wharenui at the front. Now, in terms of those statues up the top there, they are supposed to be kind of like a kaitiaki, a guardian of the marae. And with the arms out this way, that's supposed to be them kind of like, imagine a big hug, if you will, coming off and, like, you know, protecting that area. But that centre post, now that's a really, really interesting bit of the marae, because it connects the rangatira, the tupuna, down to the whenua, so the land. And it's supposed to always imply that there's going to be that connection that marries our history, our people, to where we've come from, which is the land. And so that then also informs why we call ourselves, from people who are from those areas, tangata whenua, people of the land. So another term that is basically the same as tangata whenua, they're kind of used interchangeably, is hau kāinga. And again, a really interesting bit of knowledge that comes with the word hau kāinga is that hau can be like wind or breath, and kāinga is like, yeah, your home and where you're from kind of thing. And hau kāinga implies that the people of that land got their breath from where they stand. And I just think that is so beautiful. Hee hee. My camera died. But I want to try and wrap this up. The marae is a beautiful place. If you've never been, please find the opportunity to go. I think it's really important for everyone in Aotearoa to have a better understanding of how those things work, especially because they are so important to us as Māori. Yeah, so do some more research, please. I also at some point would love to take you to my marae, which is on Waiheke Island, and give you a bit of a rundown on all of those things within a wharenui that, you know, represent the dissemination of information. Because I think it's all well and good me talking to you, but if I actually provide you with like proper examples, I feel like it would be better explained. So I'm going to park that and do that probably. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will catch you very, very soon. Double guns for you today. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. Mwah!